Okay, welcome back to Remote Work Bay. I have Justin all the way from LA here with me. You just did a trek, what, like 2, 3 days ago? Where were you?
Oh, I did my toughest challenge yet in my hiking or trekking journey. It was this insane route called Cactus to the Clouds. It's in the
Wow.
Palm Springs area.
Okay, yeah, I want to hear all about that. Do you want to share a little bit about your story first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this crazy trek you just did?
Yeah, sure. So before I became more outdoorsy and this like hiker person, Justroc, I would say that my story, it was a creative passion of mine that really started like my career. It was my background as a passionate dancer. Specifically, I was a b-boy or a break dancer that really catapulted me into the world of experiential marketing, event producing, community building, branding, and even like talent management. And so, like me being a dancer and also back in college, that's actually how you and I met. We both went to LMU. We were awesome friends there, and we still are now.
Yeah.
Um, I had my own club and I had my own club called B-Boy Status. It was like the hip hop breaking organization on campus. And also I produced street dance competitions called Claws Out and some other event properties that were sponsored by like Red Bull, Scion, a jewelry company, Wahoo's Fish Tacos, and like a bunch of other sponsors. And that's kind of where I really learned a lot of my business acumen.
Mm,
And yes, I was a business major. I had a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship, but
yeah.
it was really my creative passion and endeavor in dance where I really learned things from the ground up because, I was just putting myself out there. I had my own club on campus. I was learning a lot from that. And then throwing events, I just learned everything. Like I failed a lot. I learned so much about how to raise money, how to do event production, how to do event marketing. And that's really where I like kind of cut my chops and learned a lot of things on the marketing and the production side and just like starting something from the ground up. And it's also because of dance. It allowed me to have a dream job of mine at one point, and I was the talent manager for a celebrity dance group. Back in 2011 to like 2012,
I
there was
remember.
a group called IME Crew.
Mm-hmm.
You're very familiar. One of the
Yep.
leader or the main choreographer, Philip Shabib,
Yeah.
went to our college too. We were seniors. He was a freshman,
He's amazing.
and yeah, so like dance afforded me even that opportunity. And you can kind of think of his crew or the IME crew as like they won MTV's America's Best Dance Crew season 6. And you can kind of think of them as like the Jabberwockies. They're all international, all different age ranges from like 15 to 30. And it was definitely one of the most intense jobs I've ever had, but most rewarding. Like I definitely learned a lot real quick and I had to learn everything on the fly. And there was a lot of, moments where it's kind of like, wow, I'm like a young talent manager, but I know I have the skill set and I just had to kind of really believe in myself and take that leap of faith.
Right.
And that's actually, now that I mentioned that specific job, that's how I ended up in remote working. It was ever since then, back in 2011, where I got into, I didn't really strive to have a remote job. It just kind of happened to me because I became this like independent talent manager at that time. But I might be jumping a little bit too far ahead, but
Were you at MSA and then you started talent managing?
yeah, so this is really crazy, this story.
Yeah.
So at that time, because I always saw you, because you're popping into the office, I used to work at this talent agency called MSA
Yep.
or McDonald Selznick Associates. Shout outs to them. It's been a long time. They're one of the best agencies out there in the dance choreography game. And I was an assistant there, but I wasn't your normal assistant. I had grander visions of myself. I wanted to be a talent manager. I want to be a talent agent or either or, right? I developed this passion to want to work with talent, specifically dance talent at that time.
Hmm.
And so I was there for like a year and a half, and I was always doing projects on the side and working in the dance community. And then I actually quit. Well, let me backtrack. I got asked to manage IME Crew after they won America's Best Dance Crew season 6.
Hmm.
And then I was still working at MSA, and I was like, I can't do both. Obviously, that's also a conflict of interest. So it was kind of crazy, but I quit MSA. And I just took this leap of faith to be this young talent manager of this group. And that's how I got into this whole like remote working world
Hmm.
because I didn't have an office, like a
Yeah.
corporate office or even like a WeWork or NextSpace kind of ordeal.
Hmm.
My workspace was my apartment, cafes, anywhere with Wi-Fi, just had to get the job done.
And then from IME, managing IME, how did you shift into experiential marketing, event production? What was that timeline like?
Yeah, sure. So after my stint as a talent manager, I think I did it from 2011 to 2012.
Hmm.
Typically the shelf life of a dance group that wins a show is about a year, but they lasted longer than that because they're very creative and do a lot of projects to keep them relevant. But after 2 years as a talent manager, I really wanted to get back into marketing and events because I felt that was especially my bread and butter because that's where I started. I started as an event producer, raising sponsorship dollars, doing marketing, getting the word out, getting people to attend an event and get everyone excited about this event and brand, right? Like Claws Out or Schools for Fools or any of the other event projects that I was a part of. And so I wanted to get back into marketing and events. And I think I came across a job list. I think it was Indeed. And it was for this experiential marketing agency called Rebel Industries in
Hmm.
Santa Monica. And they were looking for project managers and coordinators. And I'll never forget what I did. They were they had a networking event at the Blind Barber in
Okay.
Culver City.
Yep.
And I saw that they had this event. It was called After Work.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just go there and just introduce myself to somebody
Yeah.
and just see what happens. Because I
Hmm.
have that kind of personality sometimes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I went in there, just introduced myself to like the photographer. I didn't know anyone at all. And that photographer introduced me to one of the logistics directors. And then I became friendly with him. And then he referred I got his contact and then he referred my resume over. I applied and then I had like an interview in like 2-3 days. So
Wow.
that's how I got into experiential marketing was by
Wow.
going to this networking event at the Blind Barber bar in Culver City. And I worked at Rebel Industries for maybe around 2 years. And it was such an eye-opening experience because we worked with a lot of spirit and beverage brands, and we would sponsor events that aligned with our clients' like demographics all over the nation. Like we would sponsor events like Coachella, Lollapalooza in Chicago, Art Basel in Miami, you name it, LA Film Festival. Like I was at like so many different events and music festivals, food festivals, art, fashion, like almost every week. I
Mm.
basically was barely in the office. Like my office was the hotel rooms and the lobbies and me pulling over on the side of the freeway to use the Wi-Fi from my phone to answer emails on my laptop. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
You've basically been on the road since you're managing IME, and then it was like the perfect job to funnel yourself into because it's exactly the same style of work. You're still on the go everywhere you're going, right? For every event. And I mean, it's probably the same level of stress as well.
oh yeah, you're right. The being the talent manager of IME and that lifestyle, just being on the go and just figuring everything out, like everything's kind of a little bit chaotic, right? But it
Mhm.
definitely translated well to when I worked at the experiential marketing agency because I was traveling almost every weekend and also midweek.
Yep.
And this time we were sponsoring the event. So we had to like build these beautiful fabricated like booths and then at the same time manage all the brand ambassadors and
Uh,
make sure the whole program was being executed flawlessly. We did a lot of like since we worked with a lot of spirit and beverage brands, we did a lot of like complimentary cocktail programs with
mhm.
really cool concepts like a mini rum, like a shellback rum hut bar. We had like a boat simulator. We
Wow.
worked with like New Amsterdam vodka. We had like a shave lounge. We gave like shoe shines, complimentary cocktails and cuts. Like it was the whole 9 yards. It was really cool working over there.
How big are their budgets?
Um, from
These.
what I remember, like we worked with, it depended on the project and the how long the campaign was. It ranged anywhere from like maybe $100,000 to millions of dollars. I would say I saw both ends of the spectrum, just depending on what the campaign was exactly. Because sometimes we did like sampling campaigns, for 3 months. We did one for Sundrop. Obviously those budgets are smaller, but if we're
Yeah.
locked into like a year program, that's going to be more like half a mil, maybe a mil,
Smaller
something like that.
and like smaller scale events.
Yeah, yeah. It just depended if we were doing like a national marketing campaign or just like a regional one. So it was just dependent on each client.
And then from there, so you worked in experiential for 2 years, and then moved to gogobottrip.com.
Yeah, and then there's also I worked for a membership community and conference called Patau.
Oh yes, yes.
plan to take on the world. That was like, I think right before I started working at GoGoBot or doing work there. Yeah, GoGoBot or Trip.com. We went by so many names. Oh my goodness.
I mean, at this point, I think people know them as Trip.com.
Sure.
But that's where me and Justin worked together, a travel tech startup for how many years were you there? 3 years?
I think, no, it was like at least 4 years for sure.
Geez,
Time flew by. At least 4 years.
I'm like, where did 7.5 years go? That's how long I was with them for.
Yeah, you're one of the original employees. I mean, you were the one that recruited me. So thank you again for all those memories.
Well, I only recruit superstars. So thank you for being a part of my team.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear how. So I actually haven't talked to you in, gosh, maybe the last year. And I know like at the tail end of before the acquisition of Trip.com, you were starting to get into hiking and trekking. So tell me a little bit more about your current endeavor, JustTrek.
Yeah. So, wow, the past 3 years have been a really interesting journey and also a blessing. So I started this platform called JustTrek. And I think I'll first start off with, it's a LA outdoor and lifestyle podcast. And on the show, you can hear stories and adventures from inspirational hikers, explorers, weekend warriors, to even like creatives in the LA community and also beyond. And the podcast really aims to elevate people to this higher state of well-being through conversations. And as a listener, the value you would get from it is you learn great tips and advice on hiking, as well as just life in general. And you will also like discover new places to explore that are either local or maybe even far away. And the podcast is outdoor focused, but I also am interviewing creatives who have this affinity with nature and the outdoors. And I'm also just trying to tap into this network, this thick network that I've grown and developed over the past, 15 plus years here in Los Angeles. Like I've been blessed to have met many interesting and incredibly talented people through my career. And it was just such a great way to reconnect and tap into that network that I built. But to kind of backtrack, the whole JustTrek thing happened because back in April 2017, it was the absence of dance in my life at that time that really led me to becoming this hiker and this more outdoor centric person. Because when I stopped dancing, that was my identity and passion and outlet for a very long time, physically and mentally. And it was also like therapy for me as well. And so when I had lost that, I had a void inside of me and something just didn't feel right for a couple of years, And although I loved it so much, when you're in something for so long, because I was in it for 15 plus years, I still consider myself a dancer, but you get a bit burnt out from whatever, because you were just so in it for so long,
Why did you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, why did you stop dancing?
Why did I stop dancing? I don't really have a clear answer for that, but what I think at the time was, so I started as a dancer back in 2000, so I'd been in the community as a dancer and also, active as an event producer and curator for like, at that point, around 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think I just got burnt out on certain aspects of it, and I wanted to pursue other interests that I had. I think that was probably more on the marketing and event side and like a bit of the talent management stuff. So I think it was just a mixture of knowing that if I'm going to be good at these other things, I need to let go of some things, And at that time, I just felt that I'd been in it for a while and it just didn't move me the way it used to. And a lot of times with those kind of creative endeavors, sometimes you have to step back from it in order to have that appreciation for it again. So I think that's what happened with me. Absolutely.
So what was that moment where you discovered hiking or trekking?
Yeah, so I'll always remember it. It was back in April 2017. And so when I realized that, when I was like, okay, I need something else if I'm not dancing. So I was like, the thought of hiking popped into my head because I had been in LA for 13 years already, and I had never explored our local trails besides maybe Culver City Stairs, right?
Right.
Just the beaches. I'd never been to the top. Yeah, I'd never been to the mountaintop or been to the top of Malibu or Santa Monica Mountains or San Gabriel. I had no clue about those things. So one day in April 2017, I just did some research on Google, There's like Malibu hikes because I knew I wanted to hike in Malibu. And
Mhm.
Coral Canyon popped up.
Okay.
And it's this nice, beautiful, chill hike next to the beach in Malibu. Did that, felt nice, and then I also went to Point Doom afterwards that same day, which is this beautiful vista that overlooks these two secluded beaches in Malibu. And then I was like, oh, cool. This was really nice. This felt really good. But it wasn't then yet that I was like really into the hiking thing. I want to say it was the week or two afterwards. This is a really special hike to me. It's called Sandstone Peak, and it is in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is Malibu / Pacific Palisades.
Okay.
And it's the tallest mountain in the Santa Monica Mountains at maybe like 3,000. It's like 3,100 something feet, something around there.
Okay.
And when I did it, it wasn't even that it was a long, crazy hike. It was only 3 miles total, 1.5 up, 1.5 down. But when I was hiking up, we hiked in the afternoon. So it ended up becoming a sunset hike.
Oh, wow.
And so when I hiked up, I just was so mind blown by how the sun was hitting the mountains that day and all the different layers. I could see the ocean. I could see all these mountain layers in the distance. I could see downtown in the distance. And my jaw just dropped. I was like, holy shit, I feel like I'm nowhere near Los Angeles. And I felt like I was in another country or many hours away. And it was that moment on Sandstone Peak when the sun was setting and just hitting all these different mountain faces. And the colors are just forever embedded in my head. And it was like I had an epiphany at the top of that summit because I was like, whoa, I might have found something that I might like and learn to love as much as how I first felt about dance.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, I hadn't felt that feeling in so long, Yes, I've done a lot of cool things and opportunities and some hobbies here and there, but not how dance first made me feel. And I ended up hiking in the dark and I enjoyed it. And I was just so high up and I'll just never forget the views that day. It was just something that is like forever embedded in my memory. So I always give it up to Sandstone Peak as the hike that really opened up my mind to, hey, I want to explore as much of the LA great outdoors. I want to see everything that LA County has to offer because I know there's so much here and I've barely scratched the surface.
And what a perfect year to get out there, considering we're all technically in quarantine and stuck indoors. And it seems to be much safer to be trekking out in the mountain right now than to be sitting indoors with a bunch of people, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, getting outdoors is crazy because getting outdoors now it's hyper commercialized now by brands and corporations. And we have a lot of special places out here in Los Angeles County that I had no clue about that make me feel like I'm in another country.
Right. And so could you expand a little bit more about JustTrek, your podcast, and just the brand in general? I think you were telling me off the air that you were part of like a LA hiking group. Is that what you got involved in and then discovered or developed JustTrek as an organization?
So to dig deeper into the story of JustTrek, I started it in 2017, which was when my hiking journey began, because my hiking journey began in April 2017. And I was going on all these hikes every weekend, right? Malibu, Griffith Park, San Gabriel Mountains. And I was just accumulating so much beautiful photos, And I was like, I have to put these somewhere. So that's what gave me the idea to start an Instagram profile called JustTrek and then have a blog called justtrek.net where I would post these photos and then write a little caption, about the hike.
Got it.
And so that was the first iteration of JustTrek. It's an outdoor blog. So I documented all the places that I visited in Malibu and the San Gabriel Mountains, which is the mountain range behind downtown LA. And I was just like, whoa, I'm capturing some insanely beautiful shots. Like I was shocked myself just being an iPhone photographer, but I guess I was decent at it, And then it evolved to all these people were seeing me post all these content. And I guess it was inspiring them like, yo, where are you going? Like, are you out of the country? Where are you? And are you in another state? I'm like, no, I'm here in LA. And then I think that piqued people's interest. And then I just noticed friends and colleagues were reaching out, saying, hey, let me know next time if you're going to go hike. And so JustTrek went from an outdoor blog and now also became a hiking group or crew. So then I started hosting community pop-up hikes, like sunset hikes, everything, short ones, moderate ones, difficult ones. And so I started building a community from that, just like how we did community events in GoGoBot or Trip.com.
Right.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I'm curious, how often do you do these treks or hike?
I at least always try to hike at least once a week, typically on the
Okay.
weekend.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, like a Saturday or Sunday. And then just depending on the week itself, I might do a local hike, maybe not too far away on the weekday.
Okay, cool. Sorry,
Um,
keep going.
no, you're good. So it began as a blog, then
Yeah.
it evolved also to a hiking crew. And then it was during the quarantine that I decided to launch my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be an extension of the JustTrek brand. So now it's three things: blog, hiking group, and now outdoor podcast. And it's just crazy how I ended up coming to the idea of a podcast because,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was a mixture of, the COVID-19 pandemic and, my need to pivot my skill set to something where I'm more digital, like producing like online content, because as you know, my background, a lot of my expertise or background is in event producing, experiential marketing,
Yep.
community building, right?
Yep.
And so it was like, and also just the need during that time in March, which was like a really super anxious time to do something creative to keep me sane, And it was like, so I had the blog and I had two trip reports on it. And one was the of Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain in the continental United States. I was able to do that as a 22-mile day hike in Insanity.
Wow.
Yeah. And also Half Dome. And I had these two trip reports up and I was like, this is really good that I have these trip reports up so people can get tips and advice and get insights on how, if they decide to do this as well.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is great to have that up. Maybe I should also have it in an audio format, just how people consume content as like an audio book or a podcast.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into the idea of, okay, let me record myself. And I literally read the trip report and just used my iPhone to record my voice. I just read it line by line. And that's when it kind of popped into my head. I was like, should I just not only share my story, but other people's stories? Like, should I just do a podcast? Because, I'd listened to a lot of podcasts during that time, whether it be Joe Rogan, Gary Vee, Art of Charm, Great Adventures. Like, there's a bunch, right? And it was from my idea of fooling around with audio trip reports mixed in with the idea that I need to pivot my skill set to be more online that really birthed this idea of starting a podcast. Because at this time in March, I was so upset about everything being shut down because they shut down our local mountains and local parks, right?
Yeah.
That I told myself, I was like, if I can't be in the outdoors, I'm going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also an epiphany in my head because I was like, I'm going to make this happen. I don't know how to do this. Let me do my research. But as you know me, we just figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah.
And so that's how the JustTrek podcast was formed. And to backtrack a little bit, I launched it on my birthday on March 31st.
Right in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, because originally I was going to have this big beach party on Venice Beach and have all my friends DJ.
Yeah.
And then have, people bring food. And it was going to be a whole celebration. But then COVID hit.
I know.
So we had to shut it down.
Oh, I feel you. Yep. I mean, I'm like, my birthday is what, a week after yours?
That's right. That's right.
Right
That's
in
right.
the beginning. And I feel like it's trending. It's definitely like YouTube channels and podcasts are definitely trending. And just to get a little bit deeper into that, I mean, I know we talked about this offline as well. How are you monetizing now off your podcast?
Yeah, so it's nothing crazy so far. I mean, I just started doing different things to monetize my, my creative endeavors. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the beginning, I had a sponsor that was already interested. So I had a sponsor for, I think, 3 episodes.
Oh, great.
It was a CBD sponsor.
Okay. Yep.
So it was perfect because CBD and helps with, physical activity, anxiety, can help with depression, and it's a more like natural way, right? So
what does it mean by they sponsor? Did they give you product? Did they help pay for some things that you needed?
Yeah, so there's so many different ways you can monetize a podcast, but for this specific one, they gave me X amount of money for sponsoring 3 episodes. So I did a intro, like 30-minute sponsor spot, and then in the middle of the podcast, I had a 60-second spot. And then they also gave me product as well.
Got it. So it's like the Joe Rogan style when he like talks about whatever
Sure.
he's sponsoring, or that's sponsoring his podcast or that episode at the time. Got it.
I will say this though, now that I look back, that was really great that happened, but I think I was thinking too much of sponsorship at the time because that's how I am, but it was way, way, way too early. And it's even too early for me now to even really think like that, because at that time I was only 3-4 episodes into my podcast. And I actually would recommend that you don't really worry about the sponsorship, because you're not going to make any money on sponsorships, especially if you do it the CPM model, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions.
Yep.
Like I'm not at that level yet where I'm getting like 100,000 downloads per episode, or even remotely close to that. But I know I have a small, mighty, and engaged podcast, which does have a lot of value as well.
Absolutely.
Very targeted, very niche. And I think if I had to go back, I mean, I was glad that I did the sponsorship and whatnot, but it made me realize, like, especially if you start allowing just all different kinds of sponsors to have space on your episode, it kind of dilutes it, if it doesn't make too much sense. And then the listeners are like, oh, what is this,
Yeah.
So another way I also monetized was, so I started building this awesome Southern California listenership of hikers, trail runners, just outdoor enthusiasts, and also like creatives as well, who also like nature and the outdoors. And I just noticed that people were like resharing my photos a lot, my Instagram stories, sharing the podcast episodes, like to a very high like degree. And it was making me so happy because I was like, wow, I'm seeing a lot of community support. And I had people message me saying like, hey, like, when are you going to have like any like apparel or hats or merch? And I was like, yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, another way was, so I just launched the JustTrek merch store just a couple weeks ago.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, there's not many items up at the moment. There's just 2, but I'm going to keep releasing.
The hat?
Yeah, here's the...
oh, gosh.
It's a retro trucker hat. There's the JustTrek logo.
I can wear it in Remote Work Bay.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll make a hat for you.
I love it. We'll make it happen. But it's having merch just made sense because not only is it their way to support, the podcast host or the producer, it's also their way of like representing you out on their adventures, so they can have this piece of merch, whether it's a hat. I currently have a hat, and then it's also a t-shirt too.
Okay, cool.
But there's a back to this, but I'm kind of stuck on this couch.
Oh, it's okay.
It's I'm not going to turn all the way around.
It's okay. I'll have to go to your website to see it.
Yeah, justtrek.net/shop. But yeah, so that's I launched the website, and I work with a print on demand service, and so I don't even hold any inventory.
That is so smart. How awesome is it that you don't have to have half your kitchen full of swag?
Yeah, we know all about that. Like, there's so many tools that are at our disposal to use. I mean, obviously it would be ideal to have some inventory on hand, but if you don't need to, because a big thing is, you buy so much of this merch, and then if you can't even sell half of it, you're just you lost so much money,
Right. Absolutely.
So this model allows me to gauge like which, products have more demand and whatnot, and which to continue or discontinue. So I'm going to be releasing a neck gaiter soon, a beanie, a fanny pack. So we're just going to keep it going.
It's the ones where you're like, you pull it up when it's cold.
Yeah. The neck gaiter is like, it's around your neck. You can put it as a face cover. You can use it like as a beanie. Oh yeah. It's what we had.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes.
It's the exact same thing. Oh my God. That's right. It's the exact same thing.
It was, hey, you know what? When COVID started, I literally had some of the, those like neck masks left. It was perfect for like if you're out running and you need a face mask, but you didn't want to like have this thing hanging off of you. You just pull it up. Granted, it's like it's not the safest mask to wear everywhere. It's like cloth and you breathe through it, but it's better than nothing.
It's so it works for so many different things. I use it to wipe the sweat off my eye on all my hikes.
Put it around your arm, put it around like if you have long hair like me, you can just, put it up as a headband.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Awesome. Well, let me know when you have your neck gaiters out, and I definitely want one of those.
Yeah. I think I'm going to put it on the store probably in the next few days. So
amazing. Well, I wanted to get back to that hike you just did, like the hardest hike that you've ever done. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh man, it was a journey, Audrey. It was so intense. And
how long did it take?
17 hours.
What's the mileage and elevation?
All right, so check it out. For all the listeners, all the remote bay listeners, Cactus to Clouds is considered one of the hardest day hikes in the world, according to Backpacking Magazine. And
Wow.
we have it here in Palm Springs, 2 hours east of Los Angeles. And it has the single highest elevation gain of
Mhm.
any trail in the United States, or one of the top. And what elevation gain is, it's the total amount of feet that you climb. So from wherever you start to the very top,
Right.
it's like 10,000, like 500 feet, which is just a
Still
god awful feat. Like it's like I had to train for this. There's like prerequisite hikes that you need to do in order to gauge
yeah.
whether you are physically and mentally fit to even attempt this. Like it's that serious because a lot of people die on this hike.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
21 miles. Oh, I forgot to say this. It's 21 miles long.
21 miles over 10,000 feet elevation
Mhm.
at the very top. So is this in the San Jacinto Mountains? Is that where it is?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I've
this
taken
specific route
the,
starts from the desert floor.
okay, so
And
the
then,
very
yeah.
bottom.
Hmm.
Okay, so I've taken the cable car up.
Yes. Then you're familiar with the route more or less.
Okay, but you started from the bottom, no cable.
I started from downtown Palm Springs behind the Palm Springs Art Museum.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't take any tram up at all, just straight to the top of the mountain. It was insane.
So I mean, what type of gear did you need for that? Are you like climbing up that mountain, or is it just like straight like elevation upwards hiking?
Yeah, so gear-wise, what we needed on this hike, especially since this is so strenuous, like this is
Uh-huh.
ridiculously strenuous, you need trekking poles. I highly recommend those. And also, the crazy thing was the weekend prior, a big snowstorm hit. As you remember, it hit a lot of the local Southern California mountains. So there was snow on the mountain when we hiked it, but it wasn't snowing that day.
Okay.
But there was like 8 to 10 inches of snow, and there was ice. So we had to do a lot of proper research. And so we had to bring our micro spikes because there were sections in the first 10 miles of the hike where I had to put my micro spikes on, which are basically like cleats so they can dig into the snow and ice so I don't die and fall down the mountain.
Right.
And I used micro spikes in certain sections along with my trekking poles and just, dug into the snow and the ice. And it really added another dimension to the hike on top of the physical feat of it already. It's already insane to do without any conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess to just be more concise, I really doubted myself that day. I actually almost gave up because I was so exhausted after the first 10 miles. And after the first 10 miles, that's when I was at the tram station.
Wow.
I was only just there, just at the tram station. And then I had to hike another 6 miles to make it to the top of San Jacinto Peak, which is the second tallest mountain in all of Southern California at like 10,000, I think like 830 something feet.
It is so beautiful up there. I didn't do that
Unreal.
tram you did, but I took the tram, and I remember being at the bottom, right where you started. It was so hot because of desert.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 90 something degrees. Took the tram all the way up, and like you said, it's like snowing up there. It's cold. It's freezing. So
it's a serious mountain. It's a very serious mountain.
I mean, it's so high that the temperature just drastically changed from sitting on that tram all the way to wherever the top of the tram station is. So for those of you that have been to the tram station, how much further do you go up once you get off the tram if you're trekking it?
Okay, so if you take the tram up, so from the tram station, you still have to hike 6 miles to the top to get to the summit.
Oh my gosh.
And that means 6 miles back down. And then the crazy thing about this day, which was another variable that added a lot of anxiety, was that because of COVID, the hours are much more restricted on the tram, which means typically the last tram leaves at like 9 p.m. But no, because of COVID, the last tram leaves at 6 p.m. So we had to make sure that we made it back down in time, or else if we miss the tram, we're completely screwed. The route becomes, so originally the route is called Cactus to Clouds, right? If you miss the tram, it's called Cactus to Clouds the Cactus, and it's 30 miles long, and you have to descend 10,000 feet. You're probably going to pass out of sheer exhaustion and possibly die.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so scary. So tell me, okay, give me the logistics of this. How many people went with you? What did you pack just in case?
Sure.
What does that all look like?
Oh man. So I'll talk about the group first. So there was a group of 8. Check
Okay.
this out. One person had to cancel last second. And so it was a group of 7 that was started at the trailhead. And
Okay.
here's another crazy logistics for you. Guess what time we started at the trailhead?
5 a.m.
One more guess. Earlier.
Ugh. 3?
10:30 p.m.
What? Are you kidding me?
Nope. That's how insane this hike is. Originally, we were going to start at midnight and start
Wow.
no later than 1, but we decided the rest of the group wanted to do it also at like even earlier. And then I agreed because there was a lot of unforeseen things that ended up happening that day, which I'm glad that we had the buffer time.
Hmm.
So that's also a big part of the logistics is what time do you start? I would say you can start anywhere in between like 10:30 p.m. in between 2 a.m. depending on, the circumstances surrounding your group and how strong all the hikers are. So our group of 8 became a group of 7 already at the trailhead. And then when we hiked 3 miles in, one person had to turn around because their feet were hurting so much. So now we're a group of 6. And
Wow.
then we hiked up another mile and it was like 3 a.m. at this point. We lost another hiker. He was cramping so much that both of his knees locked up, and then he had to take a rest and go back down the mountain. So now it's just a group of 5.
Oof. Oh my gosh.
And so from this group of 5, it was only 3 of us that made it to the summit.
What happened to the other 2?
So the other 2 are friends of mine, and I have I know for sure they could have completed the entire hike because they're very strong and inspiring hikers, but they had a time restriction because by the time they got to the top of the Skyline Trail, which is the first portion,
Hmm.
and when you get to the top of the Skyline Trail, you're near the tram station. They made the decision that there wasn't enough time to come back down because by the time they got up, they didn't have many hours left.
Got
And you
it.
don't want to miss that. You do not want to miss that last tram ride
Yeah.
because it could be a life or death kind of thing, or you're just going to be miserable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah, a group of 8 became a group of 7, 6, 5, and then just 3 of us made it to the top, and I was one of them. And it was I had to dig deep so much inside of myself. Like I was low key tearing up underneath of my sunglasses because I really wanted this for myself as like that one big challenge of the year that I
Oh,
could say is mine, because I did a lot of really crazy peak bagging last year, but I told myself this year it's about elevating other people's up.
right.
It's not just about me anymore. I want to bring other people up to the summits that I've experienced because it's given me a lot of physical, spiritual, and mental benefits.
Right.
But I wanted this for myself because this year has just been so fucking crazy. Excuse my language. It's just been a roller coaster.
I mean, I feel you. I totally feel you. And that feeling when you summited must have been incredible. Was it sunset? What did you see?
It was when we summited, it was 1 p.m.
Wow.
And I'd never been to a summit, even the most difficult ones I've done before, where I had zero energy. Like I literally got to the top, threw my hiking poles on a rock and like laid down and passed out on
Oh,
a rock for a few minutes and just gave out a big sigh of relief. But after I gathered myself, the views up there, because you've been to the top, right?
right.
They're
Yes.
just so jaw-dropping because it's such a tall mountain and the immediate surroundings is the desert floor. So you feel like you're like in heaven. You're just like 360 panoramic views and there's no other mountain ranges that are right next to you. So you see how dramatically high up you are. And it's that's my favorite summit out of in Southern California at this very moment.
Wow. I
Yeah,
believe
it was a moment. I just I felt like I was detached from my body.
I'm not a hiker, but that I agree with you. That view is insane.
It's
Like
insane. You
honestly,
are a hiker, Audrey.
I
You
mean,
are.
I can hike I can hike if I wanted to, but like you were saying in the beginning of the podcast, you got to pick and choose your battles and what you want to get good at. And I have way too many hobbies. And
Mhm.
so I wish, there's so many things that I wish I could just clone myself 5 times, learn how to climb, learn how to hike, do all of
Mhm.
these things. But, I did the easy way, took the tram all the way up, hiked a little bit of it and saw the top. And honestly, you would never believe you're in California seeing that view.
It's unreal. It's
It's
unreal.
unreal. It's so so beautiful. And I agree with you. Anyone that's listening to this video right now, make it all the way up there.
Yeah, just take the tram. You don't got to do the route that I did because it's just only insane people do it. But you
Or
want to make it realistic, right?
or start trekking with you. So
Oh,
you
true.
can,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So you can trek that mountain one day.
There you go. I'm training people. I got a course.
Yeah. Okay, so logistically, the biggest question I have is how do you map it out? Because I'm assuming there's some trails, but you might have to
Sure.
go like off trails. Like how do you map that all out? How do you map out the timing? Do you have to like, hike a bit of it before so you kind of have an idea? I mean, I only know so much about climbing and hiking through, watching things like Free Solo.
Yeah. So check it out. So there's actually this incredible app called All Trails.
All trails.
You
Okay,
can think of All Trails as like Yelp, but for finding local hikes wherever you live.
cool.
Yeah,
Very
it has a huge database. It's a really big platform in the outdoor community.
got
There's
it.
also Gaia GPS. You can use that as well. But I personally use All Trails. And so one way you can go about doing a hike like this, or even a chill one, or a moderate or a difficult one, because you can use this hike to find different level hikes around you. Like it'll say easy, moderate, hard.
Hmm.
So what I've been doing for my big strenuous day hikes, and what I mean by big strenuous day hike are like hikes that are 10 miles plus and that may take anywhere from 7 to 15 hours.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And so what you want to do if you get All Trails is you want to pay for the pro version, and the pro version allows you to download the offline maps.
Got it.
So when you download the offline maps, what you do is you load the map in and then you press record, and you can see like literally as you're hiking if you're on the right route. So if you go off route, it'll show you that you're not on the trail,
Oh,
and
wow.
you can backtrack. Yes, it's not 100% like perfect all the time, but more or less it'll always make sure you're going in the right direction if you just keep paying attention to it and making sure you make the right turns. And so that's what I used for Cactus of the Clouds, because I forgot to mention this component. So we start at 10:30 p.m. What does that mean? I'm hiking in the dark for 6 hours.
Great.
Like yes, we all have headlamps. We're all very prepared,
Yeah.
but there are so many parts going up where there's little like trails, like there's many different trails, and you don't know if you're going down the right one. Like we definitely had to backtrack a handful of times. And the only reason I knew I was lost was because of my All Trails app.
Got it. Got
So
it.
that's one really great tip, but that's also dependent. Make sure that your phone's always charged, because if something happens to your phone,
I was gonna say,
then
because I mean, without your phone, you won't have your map. So
yes, mhm.
wow. So bring extra batteries,
Extra
external
batteries.
batteries for your phone just in case.
Hmm.
Do you have like an emergency phone of some sort just in case you get trapped or run into, animals?
Sure. I don't specifically. I need to get one ASAP. It's usually called a Garmin device, and that's the device that allows you to send out an SOS signal for search and rescue. But there was a couple people in our group that had one, so
Okay.
it was good. But on huge day hikes like this that are like super strenuous and very serious in nature, it is a good idea to get a Garmin device, because yes, it's a bit expensive, anywhere from $250 to $350. But I've been in some situations where if we didn't have it, we would have been screwed. I was on Mount Whitney, and a girl in our group dislocated her knee, and she had to get airlifted out in a helicopter.
Oh my gosh. Ouch.
That was in my group.
Oh my gosh. Ouch.
I've been through a lot. Let's just say that.
I mean, thank God you guys are trekking all together as well. Must be
Mhm.
way scarier. You have to be way more prepared trekking by yourself, especially on these really strenuous hikes, or the very 10 plus hour like strenuous hikes.
Yeah, if you're going to do it solo, there's definitely a protocol to follow in terms of letting people know what time you're starting, where you're going to be at certain times, and like in case something happens,
Right. Absolutely. Wow. I mean, I can't wait to scroll through your blog and learn more, and actually listen to more episodes for podcasts and learn more
Mhm.
about these different hikes. Are you planning to expand outside of Southern California? I mean, for all the people that are working remotely, I'm sure that a lot of people right now have, packed up their cars and they're just driving around the US. I mean, do you know, I mean, are you planning to expand JustTrek outside of Southern California? And what does that look like for you?
When you say expand, do you mean the podcast specifically, or?
So I mean, I'm assuming you've hiked all over, but
Oh, I see.
are you going to expand your community and expand your brand outside of the places that you know people in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about the podcast real quick.
Yeah.
So I started expanding a much more into more states a little bit because and even other countries because I interviewed this girl from Toronto. She's like this super huge international like traveler.
Got it.
And so like I had Canadian listeners now, and I've also interviewed people who are not also in SoCal. So that's also the plan, right? Like yes, a lot of the people that I've interviewed are from Southern California or California in general. I definitely interviewed some people in NorCal, but I'm also going to be interviewing people from the East Coast, from
Okay.
the Midwest. So I'll be expanding my reach by interviewing certain outdoor enthusiasts or influencers in those regions.
Got it.
And then in terms of like hiking, yeah, I mean, I still want to visit many national parks all over the country. And I've actually got into vlogging the past 2 months. So now that I'm vlogging all my adventures, and I never thought in a million years that I would have that persona because I was just so against it, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be this
Oh my
YouTuber person talking to the camera for like 15 minutes all the time, you know?
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, we're all alone anyway these days. So you
Yeah.
might as well be talking to something. It's like having, what's it called? That Tom Hanks movie, Wall-E.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also playing with the idea of having co-hosts, like maybe I have somebody in, I don't know, let's say Las Vegas or like Denver, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have them co-host an episode and bring a special guest who's from that area, and people can hear that story. And that's one way I plan on also, expanding the Just Trek audience outside of. It does have an audience that's outside of Southern California, but it's mainly focused in here, I would say, in terms of the people that I interview. So I'm definitely planning to interview more people out of state and also have co-hosts who are from those regions.
Right. That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see where you take your brand and your podcast. I mean, I thank you so much, by the way, for all of your time. I think
Sure.
like the last question I have for you is, since we are a remote work bay channel, I wanted to know if, when you do travel and you do work remotely, what are some of, your favorite things that you take with you, like must-haves?
I was always a really big portable charger person.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wouldn't just have one. I would have two,
Yeah.
three portable chargers.
Do you have like a favorite?
Yeah, I use one right now. It's more of like my outdoor charger because it's like 30,000 AMH, and it's also like a flashlight.
Wow.
But something else because I need that in case something happens to me in the mountains. But it's also good for if I'm on the go, with my laptop or my podcast gear, because it has so much juice that if I really needed to use all of it, it could power different devices. Whether if I had an iPad, need to charge the microphone, my laptop, my phone. So I was always a really big portable charger person ever since like since 2010,
Right.
2011.
Because you use your phone so much. I mean, outside of the maps, even for your previous jobs, I mean, you're on your phone all day, every day for events, for when you're managing the dance crew, whatever it is. That's awesome. Well, send me some links on what you recommend for people to look at. And how can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So my blog is justtrek.net. So it's JUSTTREK.net. Okay. And you can find on there like the podcast link, the merch shop. They're all the tabs at the top. And then you can find me on, I'm very active on Instagram. So my Just Trek platform is at justtrek, JUST.TREK. And then I'm also very active on my personal at Justroc, JUSTROC. So you can find me on Instagram, or you can go to the website, justtrek.net, and you can find all the information on there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to see where your adventure takes you next.
Yeah, it's a whole movement. I want my own studio. I want to do it like Joe Rogan style and bring in special guests. So I have a whole vision for it.
So excited to see where it goes, and let us know how we can support you.
Appreciate it, Audrey.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.